Hello. Thank you all for joining. This is episode 8 of Experience Matters. You've joined a good one because it's our last episode of season 1, and then we'll kick off season 2 in 2022. So wait for that. But we have a good episode planned, so thank you all again for joining. Thank you, Darren and Jackson. Darren is our head of research product for APAC region, and Jackson is our research manager for the audience product. So, welcome to the show, guys. How's it going?
Very good, very good.
Okay.
Happy
Yeah.
Friday indeed.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Jackson, you're
Yeah.
in Pune, right?
Yeah, I live in Pune. Uh,
Yeah. Nice. What's the weather like there?
it's cold, but I'm a little hot right now.
Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah.
Understandable. Darren, Malaysia, how's it there?
It's currently raining, so it has been raining quite a lot lately. Yeah, but that's how Malaysia is, right? It's like hot and humid, and it also rains
Yeah.
during the day.
But in December, is that typical for December?
Yes and no, because it has been like raining quite a lot lately, so it's a bit hard to sort of, yeah, kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
estimate whether
We had a few showers here in Pune as well.
Okay.
it's like
Mm.
That's the
global
reason
warming
the
effect.
showers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that.
True. Are you guys doing anything? End of the year, we're so close to Christmas, so close to the holidays. What are your plans?
For me, it's all about family, right? So we have
Yeah.
a big program in the house.
Nice.
I got a handful. Got 5 kids at home.
Yeah, it just
So
makes it special.
yeah, and we have a long dinner Christmas night. So all of us are looking forward to it right now.
Lovely. Darren, are
Kids are
you
excited.
traveling?
You can't really go anywhere or travel anywhere now, right? So I think maybe just relax or chill locally, and maybe like a road
Yeah.
trip somewhere close by. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking forward to the break. Whether I go anywhere or I'm just chilling at home, it's just Christmas is always a special time, and New Year's and just
But
the
we've
entire
technically
holidays.
been chilling for the past 2 years at home, right?
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
true.
I haven't seen the office for some time now. I'm kind of missing
That is true. That is
that
true. Yeah.
atmosphere as well. So nice.
Shall we kick it off? Shall we get
Sure,
started?
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So today's discussion and our topic is all around data quality, right? It is, by the end of this session, we ideally want you all to have some, basic checks that you can implement for the data that you collect as part of your research studies. If you are going through, third-party if you're collecting research for competition studies, from your competition brands, a lot of things that can be done and implemented at your end as well as the agencies, and to ensure that the data that you're getting is of highest quality, right? So to start off with, just tricks that you can do, and not really tricks so much as things that you can implement as part of your process of data collection, just to make sure that the quality is up there. Darren, I'll just hand it over to you, and then you can walk us through
Sure.
these.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi guys. So just a quick introduction for about myself. I come from the audience and the sample background, right? So I started off working at Research Now, which is now Dinata. I started off as a project manager, and then managing audience sample only projects, and then I slowly progressed into sales. And towards the end, I was basically heading up the department where I work with partners to strengthen basically the panel building part, right? So, being in all these roles, these different roles, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what type of studies you're running, right? It could be a healthcare studies, ad tracker, or even like just a general smoker studies. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, what really matters is the data quality, right? The quality of your data, the quality of your responses, and your audience. So today, what we're gonna talk about, let me just go ahead and, yep. So today we're going to talk about different ways on how you can improve your online data quality, right? So first of all, with anything is to design your survey, your questionnaire. You need to have a well-written questionnaire that really focuses on your survey objectives, right? Know what is your survey objective and what goal you're trying to achieve with this set of questions. And make sure that you write your question in a concise way to capture key information, right? And also using the right vocabulary towards your target audience. For example, the vocabulary that you use that is targeted towards teenagers 13 to 17 years old versus like an elders that is 55 and above. It's a little bit different, like teens nowadays, they use this jargons and all these terms, but also you need to make your survey clear and concise and easier for them to understand,
Yep.
right? And also after finishing the whole thing of your survey design, it is always best to double check with a few people. You could first double check with your coworker, and then you have a friend run through it for you. Because what might seem okay to this person might come out a little bit different for the other person, and they might not really like this. So it's always
Yep.
good to cross-check with different people, right? And next step is to understand your survey participants, as in the demographic that you want. So whether you're looking for, moviegoers, smokers, non-smokers, what are the age of your demographic, and how you want to find them, right?
Mhm.
And also, the very crucial part to this is to avoid, when you're screening your survey participants, to avoid asking questions that might mislead them or
Yep.
lead them to answer the way that they think they will qualify. So for
Yep.
example, I'll give you a good example. When you're asking people, have you watched a movie in the last 3 months? So anyone would know that, okay, you are looking for moviegoers. So even though I haven't been to the cinema in the last 3 months, I would probably answer yes so that I can qualify for the survey, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
try to
Especially
avoid.
if it's incentivized, right? Because that it becomes very tricky then. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct, and that will affect your data because you're not really targeting the right survey participants. So avoid these type of questions. Third one is allowing honest answers in your multiple select or your single selects. Sometimes the options that you provide might not be applicable to everyone, right? If you're only providing 4 options, but there's so many different types of people in the world. So you should always have none of these not applicable, or I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And then usually what is highly recommended is like right next to these answers options, you would have like an open-ended a section where they can fill out what it is that
Yeah.
actually applies to them.
Yeah, I love that
Because-
you've put in honest answers there, because there's so many times I receive these surveys and the NPS question is there, so it's 0 to 10. They have the entire scale, but the 10 is already pre-filled. So it's you're just all forcing them to give you or pushing
Yes.
them towards giving you a good score, which is you just need to be open and make sure that you're getting the right data.
Yep,
Sorry, go ahead.
you're getting false information, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And then also, when it comes down to it, also your survey programming is very important, especially for very complicated surveys that are over 100 questions and you have logic that applies to them left and right, up and down. So you make sure that you run through all your survey logics before launch. What I recommend here is that you actually do a soft launch of like a 10% of your quota, right? And then you pause your survey. You do a full thorough check and make sure that all the logic is working and everything, and then you can proceed with the full launch. So
Yeah.
you actually make sure that during the soft launch everything is working. Sometimes, and we do come into problems during soft launch, things are not working. Then it gives you time to basically, edit and change things before you
Yeah.
actually do the full launch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next, I mean, we're in 2021 now, okay? So all of your studies, your survey, whatsoever, it needs to be optimized for mobile, Okay, I mean everyone has different choices. Like I prefer to do my studies on a computer, but some might actually prefer to do it on the tablet or a mobile. So sometimes it really just bugs me when I'm going through all this complex matrix question on my mobile, and I have to go up and down, left and right, and then come back again up and down, left and right, and it takes me just 10 minutes to finish one question, and it just annoys me. It makes me just want to close the survey, or it actually forces me to just select everything that's on the left hand side without
Yep,
scrolling to the right, right? So because
yep.
this is just basically forcing bad data onto your studies. Yep. And last but not least is that you should implement a good quality control checks to all of your studies. Um, whichever platform it is that you're using nowadays, they should have a good quality control checks in place that is automated, that are able to track all these problematic data and flag them for you, to make your job easier, obviously, especially when you have over 10,000 respondents and you have to go through
Yeah,
each and every
yeah.
single one. It needs to be automated. So today, what we're going to do for you is we're going to do a deep dive into the different types of quality control checks that is available now in the market, right? So first up, we have one-worded answers. So usually it's just one word like yes or no. The word is less than 3 characters. So the system will automatically pick up these and flag them for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Coming up.
and I think all of these, it is possible, even if you're not going through a software, it is completely possible to do this manually as well. Products with QuestionPro, it is already inbuilt into the product. So you can, it flags off these questionable responses. But if you weren't with QuestionPro, if you're running your own research studies, you're collecting the data, all of these can be done manually as well, right? It's just a matter of putting in that formula in Excel, and then it'll apply across the entire sheet. So, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Coming up next, we have duplicate text across responses. So similar to the first one, where they answer yes or no, this one is mostly like they just type the same word on all the open-ended questions, like nothing, yeah, welcome, and they typed it a few times. So you should let the first one pass, but then the subsequent ones, the system should be able to pick it up, right, for you and flag them.
Yeah.
I see that there is a questions from Mark. How do you reduce survey bias while formulating the questions? For example, in the movie circumstance that you mentioned about the, we're talking about the, have you been to a movie in the last
Yeah.
3 months? Shibani, you have any input on
Yeah,
this?
so I would not ask the question. I would ask, okay, do you know of the movie theaters in and around your place? Maybe talk about not the movie so much as the how often do you typically go and see a movie? Ask other lifestyle questions before as well, so it doesn't seem out of place. It doesn't seem that is the main focus of the study. So I would build it into a whole bunch of other questions so that they don't know which one the entire survey is going to be on, and not ask it
Yeah.
as direct. See if we can get something around
That is a
that
good
question,
one.
which
So
helps us answer that question. Yeah.
yeah, instead of asking them, have you been to a movie in the last 3 months? But you could just say, which
Typically,
one
huh?
of these activities have you done in the last 3 months? So you can say, go to a movie, went snowboarding, went to a karaoke,
Yeah.
went water skiing. So it depends on what the answers they selected, then you would route them based on your logic or terminate them. Yep.
Absolutely. And thanks for the question, Ma. Everyone, there is a comment section below. We're happy to take your questions. So just keep posting it in there, and we'll answer as best as we can.
Yep.
All right. Yep.
All right, moving forward, we have all checkbox selected. So basically, the person will just go through all these and select everything because they're trying to speed through the survey. So here, this is a good example of a bad program or bad design survey, right? So for example, here when you ask what is your favorite airline, and you're allowing multiple selections, right? And it's not really concise because when you're asking about favorite, it should be just one, right? So you should just allow a single select instead of a multiple select. So this person needs to further refine the way they design the questionnaire for this study.
Yeah.
Right. So pattern responses. This is one of my favorite ones. Back in the days when I was in the sample, when we run projects, they will ask us to test it, right? So we actually have to go through and text it. So this one is actually my favorite one. I like to go from all the way from the left, and then like slightly go to the right, down, and then back to the left again. It's almost kind of like I'm drawing something, right? So this is kind of fun, and I love it nowadays that the system is able to pick up these pattern responses, like whatever it is that you're trying to draw, like the system knows. So this is definitely a good one, a good automated one.
Yeah.
To track whether or not your respondent is actually paying attention. Yep. Duplicate IP across responses. This one is a little bit tricky. So basically, the system will flag anyone that are within the same IP address, but this one is tricky. For example, if you work in a hospital, the entire hospital might share one IP address, but you could have 2 or 3 different doctors that are doing the survey for you. Or basically in the same household, like in Asia, the entire family lives in one household, like 10 people, right? But they are actually different users. So the way around this is to implement a user ID as a variable. So basically you identify a specific person to a specific user ID, and you're able to track them. If this person has already done this survey, then you just don't allow them. But yeah, so this one, just proceed with caution. Next is speed trap. This one is very common now. There's 2 different time that you can either set an average time for this survey. So for example, you can set at 15 minutes and you allow like a 30% deviation. If they're faster than 30% faster than 15 minutes. So if they can finish the survey in 10 minutes, then you flag them. Or you use the real-time average. Basically the average of 500 responses. And if you're faster than 30% faster than these average, then we flagged you.
Yeah, and that's why the soft launch plays a huge role as well, right? If you don't really know what the length of the survey is going to be, you can go off of what comes from your soft launch and then build that in there for once you kick off the live survey.
Yeah. And then next up, we have gibberish words. This one should be very common, where people just on the keyboard, they just they just one hand they just go the other hand they just click on the next question on the mouse. So this one should be very standard that any system should have. Last but not least is this is also one of my favorite ones. I call them quality terminates, or basically your attention checking questions. There's another word for it. It's called red herring. Right? So basically, it's terminate respondent who fail a logic test. So my example would be, for this question, please select option 4. Whoever that does not select option 4 will be a quality terminate from the logic that you set up. Right. Yeah. So another example for this would be like, for example, you would include fake brands that does not exist in this world in the answers options. And you would like terminate the respondent who actually select 2 or more fake brands in their answers. This could be a way to capture quality as well. The other ones that I like, these are the more older types of quality checks, is that they will ask you your age in the beginning of the survey, and then they will validate and ask you your age again towards the end of the survey and make sure that both of these answer matches. So these are the different types of data quality checkers available in the system nowadays, and I'm actually very glad that we do have them. And it actually makes the client feel more at ease that we have all these options available, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially to one of my consulting clients in Hong Kong, they are like, "Oh, yeah, we actually, yeah, is glad that to know that you have all this, and it actually saved us a lot of work, manual work."
Yeah, 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 exactly. And the thing is, it just seems so simple and logical now, but so many people just don't implement it. They just take their data as it comes in, believe that it's the right data, and then analyze and invest upon the insights that are coming from there, right? So thank you for these, Darren. They're just simple checks that everyone can, implement as part of
Yeah.
the surveys that they and the responses that they collect from their surveys. But having this in place, it's you have access to your own data as and when the data comes in. You're collecting those responses. Now, what if you are, you're running your responses through, and you're collecting your data from competition brands? You don't have their contact information, so you go to panels, you go to outside agencies who collect this. So making sure that data that you're collecting is important, as is of highest quality, is important as well. So Jackson, I think this is perfect for you to
Yeah,
step in and walk us through how you handle, right, you handle the entire panel business. So how do you make
absolutely.
sure that the data that we're collecting is perfect?
Sure, sure. So yeah, so thanks, Shibani. Darren, well explained. I'm Jackson Cyril. I'll introduce myself again. I've been with QuestionPro for a little over 3 years now, managing audience projects. It's been a good experience and mostly fun, right? That's what's important. Anyways, I'm going to be speaking a little bit more about the role of the project manager and why is it important to have one assigned to you, right, to the client in this case, right? We simply act as an extension to the already existing features that Darren was speaking about, but also an extension of for the client themselves, right? I'm going to be dividing this discussion into two parts basically. The first part is going to be from a very transactional point of view, which is also very important, right? Because I'll state all the steps, and if we have the steps correctly done, we're going to experience smooth sailing right through the course of the project. The first one obviously is to gather the specifications, right? And what do we have under the specifications? First of all, the target audience itself, right? What kind of target, what kind of respondents is the client looking for? Are they looking for something in the B2B sector? Are they looking for some specific titles? C-level managers plus decision makers? What kind of industry? Is it automobile? Is it manufacturing? Healthcare, right?
Yeah.
These are some of the B2B targeting, and it could be also a very simple general population study, what we would call B2C, right? Is the client looking for something more specific among the demographics in the general population, right? So this is information that we need. This is the basic information that we need before we start any project, right?
Yeah.
And the
And
second,
that is actually a highly critical one, right? Because if you're looking at
yes,
your
yes,
target group,
absolutely.
if they can share the target group, and they will meet all of the criteria, you'll collect the data, but they can't really action upon that data at all because it's not from the right target group, the right niche of
Correct, correct.
customers that they're looking at, right? So yeah.
Correct, correct, and that's why the next thing that I'll be talking about will help us a little bit more fine tune the targeting, right? So the next most important thing is the incidence. What
Yep.
is the incidence? Is nothing but the percentage of individuals that are represented in the population. Right? It could be, or simply put, the people who qualify to take the survey, right? Like for example, if the client wants to target coffee drinkers in India, we would assume the IR is anywhere above 85%, right? It's very common to have coffee in India. But if the targeting becomes more specific, like a particular brand or a particular type of coffee, for example, espressos in India, it's not common enough, right? Even though it's a trend now, we would assume the IR again here is below 40%. But again, like you mentioned earlier, the soft launch will help us understand even the incidence,
Yeah.
especially for general population studies, right? So yeah, incidence is another factor, another point that we prefer that client gives to us, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
But if they don't have that information, then we also conduct a thorough Google search, and also cross verify it with our panel. And then
Yeah.
again, the soft launch comes to confirm that, right?
Yeah.
The third most important thing is the length of the interview. Um,
Yeah.
we generally prefer that the interviews, especially for quantitative studies, online surveys, is between 7 to 15 minutes. Anything more than that can cause fatigue, and then it will
Yeah.
open up room for speeders or straight liners or bad opinions, what Darren was speaking about earlier. Uh, Again, like you mentioned earlier, the soft launch will help us understand a realistic, uh, because generally we assume, even though we conduct a few tests from the client side to identify what the actual length of the interview might be, but when we
Yeah.
deploy it to the open to the panel, we get a more realistic sense.
Yeah.
10% should do it. 10% of the soft launch, what Darren was talking about, is a
Yeah.
substantial number, and we should be able to identify what the actual length of the interview might be, and then we can maybe make an adjustment.
Yeah.
Obviously, discussing this with the client, right?
Yeah.
So the
I mean,
last
there
thing,
are going to be cases where it goes above 15. Very rare, right? But
yeah,
there could be, very specific B2B surveys, for example,
correct.
that you have to go beyond 15, where all of the incentives and things like that you'll have to bring in just to make sure that your data quality is up there, right? So,
And that's
um,
also,
yeah.
yeah. And that's also one of the
No,
reasons we have an incentive. The incentive is also different for different target audiences, right? So for a B2B study, generally the incentive is pretty high compared to a general
exactly.
population study. And that
Yeah,
also, the length of the interview has a direct impact also on the cost per incidence, right? On the cost
exactly.
per interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the longer the interview, the higher the
Mhm.
incentive. The respondent needs to be compensated for the time he gives, right? So
Yep.
yeah, so that's you're right on that point, right? We need we it depends on the target audience also.
Yep.
And last thing, before we even check feasibility, is to identify the quotas right in the beginning. Right? Is the client looking for quotas based on the demographics, or is the client
Mhm.
looking for quotas based on the targeting itself?
Yep.
This will help us understand how many we can get from each target group, right? This leads me to the feasibility, right? So once we gather
Mm.
all this information, we run a feasibility check in the back end, right, to identify
Yep.
whether we're able to target this. What is the field time required to complete these many number of completed surveys? What is
Mhm.
the CPI, like I mentioned earlier? What is the cost per
Mhm.
incidence? Depending on the IR, depending on the length of the interview, depending on the number of quotas in the survey, right? We need to we come up with a plan, and then, of course, once we've come to agreement with the client, once we've got the go ahead, we go to the soft launch, right? Which is again 10% of the total N. Uh,
Mhm.
in the soft launch, we identify if there are any discrepancies in the logic, the flow. Is the targeting wrong?
Yep.
Have we targeted correctly? It can be a fault on our side. It can be a fault in the system. It can be a problem with the IR also. Right? We don't know
Yep.
with the
Yeah. Yeah.
incidents also, right? We probably we did not assume, we did not do the proper research for the incidents also. You never know. You never know, right? So the soft launch will help us identify this. Will help us uh, will help us catch this, and then we
Yep.
proceed with the full launch if everything
Mhm.
has been rectified. After the full launch, of course, is a data review, but
Yep.
also during the course of this of the project, we supply daily updates. We have
Yep.
a dashboard link that shows real time progress. How many have
Yep.
entered the survey? What are the dropouts? What is the conversion
Yeah.
rate? What is the IR in the end? Right? Are
Yep.
we
And
right on track?
yeah. Yeah, no, sorry, I was just adding because that's the beauty of it because it's just so transparent, right? You don't
Correct.
have to. It's not just something that happens at the back end and we come to you with the data at the end of the day.
Yes.
You're
Yes. Absolutely.
involved, and we allow our customers to be involved in every step. They
Correct.
see the data that's there as part of the soft launch, right? They want to do if they have a research team, they understand how it's going. They can give us their input. Say we want to tweak this, we want to do that, we
Correct.
want to add
Correct.
this,
Correct.
maybe we want to change the target audience a little bit, But even if they don't, we have our expertise, our research team who comes in and looks at that data and makes sure that the
Correct.
data looks right. So we definitely involve them at every stage
Right.
during this data collection. Yeah.
And this is a two-way process, right? We have the client looking at it, giving us suggestions. We have us looking at it, the
Right.
researchers looking at it, all of us collaborating together to, in
Yeah.
the end, get the data on the right time and right data. Right? So yeah,
Yeah.
so these are once we've had the survey, once we've done a data review, we conduct a data review again in the end. The survey is ready for reporting. Right? We also replace respondents. We do expect a 10 to 15% a ratio of bad respondents, which are flagged in the system through our automation already, because that is something uh, we do. It's a fact that we have people just taking surveys for the incentive, right? It's not, we're not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
true that people are there just to just take the surveys, get our incentive, and get out, right? So our systems, our automations are in place to track that also, right? And flag them in the system, and we get them replaced for you. So yeah, so this is the, from a transactional point of view, the very basic survey we conduct. So to summarize, we have recruiting the right participants, verifying participant demographics, screening to ensure we have the right participants, data review, and then reporting. Right. So these are the very basic steps. But we also have before our respondents even enter the survey, we have a few security checks in place. Right? And this again is divided into two parts. One is to identify respondent behavior, whether he's really genuine, right? So we have a few attention checks also to understand if we also want to see language proficiency, because if they're not able to answer these basic questions correctly, then they're not going to be able to give the right insights in the survey itself, right? So some of the examples here on the screen is skillet is most associated with one of these options, right? And if he did not select pan, then he was terminated. Right? Can they answer basic questions correctly? We have a very it's pretty funny, but we've had people fail at this as well, right? So do you know what the word lotan means? Lotan is not a real word, right? And you have people saying yes, and they're surprised, they're terminated, right in the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
We have you used the internet? And someone just says no, right? Very, so very common sense, but yet logical enough for us to add those so that we don't have those guys enter the survey, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah, so we also have to, like I said, language proficiency, right? If you can't understand the word sympathy, then and if you did not select compassion, then you are terminated. Like,
Got
apart,
it.
these are just a few examples we have. Depending on the length of the interview that we already have, we have to logically put these questions also, right? We can't have 20 of these questions in the pre-screeners, and then the screen, and then they take the survey. We have already caused fatigue. So we kind of analyze this at our end, depending on the target audience. We generally like to use this more on general population studies. Our B2B already has a fine-tuned targeting, right? So we have many, depending on the target audience, we have more specific questions that is placed for them, right? And we also have a few technological layers that are added even before we enter the survey, before they once they start to take the survey, right? We have the IP address detection, right? We also have capture, which is pretty much
Yeah.
standard across all industries.
Yeah.
We have capture there to identify if it's a bot or if it's a fraud, anything like that, right? We also have our data quality team uses an event streaming uh, capability. Like imagine we bots generally have a pattern. Even speeders have a pattern. They just want to do things very fast. So we have that. We have a record of the screening in the screening process, and then we also identify and discard respondents in that format. So these were some of the things that
Awesome.
before they even enter the survey, we have these attention checks, these
Yeah.
security measures in place. But we also once what happens once they start taking the survey, right? Once they clear all this, even though we have all the automation in place, right? We also, as project managers, try and identify key questions in the survey that we could use as a data point. Uh, we know from experience that research is very unique for each individual, whether it's a company or a PhD. Each one uses or creates their own yardstick to identify what a good response is or rather what a bad response is. Right? So we kind of do a one-on-one, if that's possible, with the client to identify what those questions in the survey might be that we could use as a yardstick, right? That we could use as a check. Like you can check this question to identify whether the respondent is really who they say they are.
Yeah.
Right. It could be a simple open end also, right? It could be an open end that is related to the topic of the study, or it could be an open end that is very much related to the title of the respondent. If he's a software engineer, then we'll have questions related to software, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And depending on the answers he's given, we use that as well as a measure, a security measure to identify a legitimate response, right? Or sometimes we had as an example, we did a study for BMW drivers some time ago, where they had a question about the different features in the car, and depending on the model that he selected, there were certain features that were given as an option, and if he selected the wrong feature that was not associated with the model,
Terminate.
then the client used that as a red flag, right? He identified,
Yeah,
okay,
smart.
this feature does not exist, right? So each one has their own measure, their own style of identifying, because in the end they are the experts, right? And we are here to assist them and collaborate together to, in the end, supply good data, viable data, so that they can make better decisions. Yeah. So this was a few of the steps or measures that we as project managers take to help to assist the client in the end achieve their goal.
Yeah,
I
thank
hope this
you.
was helpful.
And it was, I think it was a fabulous show, right? And it's a great way to end season one. It's just
Amazing. Yeah,
so
happy
many
one.
useful things that everyone who's joined, can implement as part of the data that they're collecting. And pretty much every point is something very quickly, they don't need technology, they don't have to have the technology to implement it, they don't there isn't investment required to implement it. It's just things that they can run as of tomorrow, just to make sure that the data they're collecting
Absolutely.
is of the highest quality. So
Yes.
thank you so much for that, Darren and Jackson. We'll
Thank
be
you, Shibani.
monitoring the comment section, so if you have any questions, feel free to put in your comments and your questions in the comment box, and we'll answer them as and when they come in, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
like I said, this is our we're closing out season one, and now we're going to be taking a little bit of a break for the end. For the end of the year, and then we're back. I think our first episode of season two, and we've already planned for it. It's going to be a really great session that is going to be on Jan 17th. So tune in for that. Like always, we stream on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter. We're pretty much everywhere. So join us on for season two as well. It's going to be bigger and better.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
All
Merry
right,
Christmas and
thank
Happy
you.
New Year in advance.
Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone. Enjoy the holidays.
Bye-bye.